Hello and welcome back to the Birdcage. I'm Jack Kenna, joined alongside my good friend James Madden to recap the Kansas Jayhawks 91-87 win at home against UCF yesterday. James, how are you doing?
I'm good. I mean, I'm outside right now, but it's a great afternoon. I actually just posted on Twitter right before I came on here. The weather the past 2 days in Lawrence has been great, so there's
Yeah.
not much to complain about. KU won last night, so all things are good on my side of things. So
Yeah, this is some of the best weather we've had in Lawrence in a while. I feel like sadly we almost missed fall weather. It went straight to being 90 degrees to now it's going to be cold enough to where you have to wear heavy coats. So this is nice. I walked around campus in a t-shirt all day, felt the breeze. It was good. It was good. But it was an interesting game from the Kansas Jayhawks. It was a game where your starting point guard is out because he rolled his ankle. It was a game where you're reacclimating KJ Adams back into game time play because he's been out the past few games with a shoulder injury. And it was a game where UCF played really darn good.
yeah, and UCF. I mean, I was actually at the game in Orlando earlier in January when Kansas won by 51, and even Bill Self said post game that they had a good team over there. It's just that they caught them on a bad day, and I think UCF was looking at their schedule yesterday. They lost by one at Houston, and then now very well could have won last night at the Allen Fieldhouse. So they were probably, I'd say, like 2, 3 possessions away from being 15-5 with wins at Houston and Kansas, which I mean, I'm sure as you could agree is a hell of a resume. But now they're 13-7 with a 4-5 record in conference play, and it's much different. But I think there's still a team that can make a tournament, make like a run at the Big 12 tournament, make a tournament appearance, and maybe make a little bit of noise in Kansas City, and even win a game or two in the national tournament. I think they have a very fun team led by Keyshawn Hall, who had one of his best performances this season last night with 34 points.
Yeah. Let's dive into UCF before we dissect things from a Kansas fan perspective and just a Kansas perspective as as we typically do over here. UCF played good. You mentioned his name. Keyshawn Hall had a really great game, 34.7 rebounds. He had three turnovers, one at the end of the game. We'll kind of talk about that. Keyshawn really wanted a foul. What do you think on that call?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's a tough call to make because down the stretch, it's one of those calls. Who knows what you make maybe in the first half, but down the stretch, refs really try to stay away from making that controversial call. And when you're in the Allen Fieldhouse, I saw actually NBA refs talking about how there's no such thing as a home court whistle. There's no such thing as a superstar whistle, which obviously any basketball fan disagrees with because at the Allen Fieldhouse, that's a really tough call to make.
Yeah.
But I mean, regardless of it, UCF played a really good game. I mean, I'm sure I didn't watch his post game press conference, but I'm sure head coach Johnny Dawkins will tell you they should have probably won that game. And you don't like there's a lot of shoulda, woulda, coulda. You should have won maybe every game, but that was a game I'm sure UCF's kicking themselves for now because, like I said, they're 2, 3 possessions away from being 15-5 with wins at Houston and a win at Kansas, which would have you not only in the tournament but in like the 8-7 range of seeds. But it's a tough call to make down the stretch, especially in an environment like the Allen Fieldhouse.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of moral victories. I don't know really your stance on moral victories, but it just kind of reminds me of, I'll bring up a few games that are important to me, but when Kansas traveled to Iowa State. Kansas fans understand how tough that environment is, and it was probably marked on the schedule by a lot of fans as a loss. You don't really go into Hilton and get a win. However, just the way that they fought all game, you are a little bummed at the end of the day, even if you weren't expecting a win, just because of how close the game was.
Yeah, and Hilton's, I think probably a lot of Kansas fans, I think, are starting to respect it now. But obviously, the rivalry they never wanted to give an in-conference rivalry, a rival their credit. But Hilton's a tough spot to play, and Kansas now has lost their back-to-back seasons. But yeah, I'm with you, Jack. I'm not a huge moral victory guy. You either win or you don't. And there's plenty of games, I'm sure, that you win that you shouldn't win. And you're not going to say, oh, well, we shouldn't have won that game. It's still a win. And Kansas has had games like that this year. They played like garbage in some games and snuck away with a win. The Arizona State game, I would say, wasn't their best win. But if you win a conference game in the Big 12, it's a win. And like we said, if you lose a game, it's not how good you played. Just it's it counts the same as if you were to lose by 50, like UCF did at home to KU, or if you lose on the last possession, like Kansas did against West Virginia. So it all counts the same, no matter how good, how well, or how poor you play.
Yeah, and I feel like coming from UCF's perspective, it wasn't just Keyshawn Hall who played good. Darius Johnson, I felt played amazing. He shot 5 of 8 from three, and for a bit of the stretch there, he was pretty much dominating the game, controlling the tempo, doing everything you need a point guard to do. He was terrific. And then even Jordan Ivy Curry, I thought made a lot of plays down the stretch. He's a great player as well. He contributed in assists. He led the team with 8 assists, which is DeJuan Harris numbers right there. And so it's like players, they have dudes. They do. And I know we walked into Orlando and beat them by 50, but this is a very good UCF team.
Yeah, and actually, funny enough, obviously with DeJuan Harris out last night, when I was in Orlando, I asked Bills because that was the first game. Obviously, DeJuan was playing, but Shaquille Moore made his first start of the season that game as well. So I
Hmm.
asked Bill Self post game what went into that decision. He said he thought matchup wise, he was a better matchup for Ivy Curry, Shaq. That way, DeJuan could guard Darius Johnson. And then last night, obviously, DeJuan wasn't in the game, wasn't playing, so he had to find new defensive matchups for Darius Johnson. Johnson had probably his best game of the season because Johnson had a great year last year, but he's really struggled to start the year. And Ivy Curry's carried a lot of that load. Who actually, I was looking at the Big 12 numbers. I didn't realize Ivy Curry was eighth in the Big 12 in scoring entering last night's game. So he's had a very quiet and underrated season. And then Keyshawn Hall was third. But I mean, we all know Keyshawn Hall's been a dog everywhere he's been. He was a killer at George Mason last year, now a killer at UCF. But Jordan Ivy Curry, I don't think is getting the love as one of the he deserves as one of the best guards in the Big 12. And he's the Big 12 has some, they have some very winnable games coming up on their schedule. And if
Hmm.
he's able to play like he did last night, Darius Johnson's able to find the old Darius Johnson that we saw 2 or 3 years ago. And Keyshawn Hall still keeps being a killer like he's been his whole career. UCF has a real shot to make some noise in Kansas City and then maybe make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We'll switch over and talk about Kansas now a little bit. It was a two-headed monster between Zeke Mayo and Hunter Dickinson that really led the way. Both guys scoring 24 points. Hunter had 7 boards. Zeke Mayo had 9 boards. It was a very impressive performance. Mm, I don't know the real terminology for it because I didn't think it was a great offensive performance for KU. I just feel like both teams just had shot makers yesterday.
Yeah, and Hunter Dickinson had probably, I'd say outside of the Michigan State game, had probably his best performance of the season down in Orlando. So
Mhm.
this is now 2 times that he's given them real problems down low, and that's been kind of their problem all year long has been interior defense. They have some big guys, but they're not filled out. And Hunter Dickinson not only is the tallest player on the floor, he probably is the biggest player when it comes to weight and muscle. So
Yeah.
he's just a unit down low, and now that's twice this season that UCF has had no answer for him. And Zeke Mayo, after a very tough finish to the Houston game, a game we'll talk about moral victories, a game Kansas, I'm not even going to say thinks they should have won, a game Kansas should have won, especially against that's the
Why?
type of game that you won't win the conference because Houston will be one of those teams that's going to win the conference. And but Zeke Mayo, got back on track with a good performance last night, and that's what he's done all year. I mean, everyone has those bad games, but Zeke in big moments for KU for the better part of this season has stepped up for his hometown squad in his hometown. And when he's at Allen Fieldhouse, he plays like maybe the best guard in the Big 12, and that's what he did last night.
He's special. He really is just such a special player. He provides something that this Kansas team really lacked a year ago, which I feel like is just a creative shot maker. And watching him play basketball it's super fun. And I wish we had more than 1 year or watch Zeke Mayo shine because what he's been able to do in his short time at Allen Fieldhouse is very incredible. I think of his individual spurts against UNC that was phenomenal. And then last night was one of his better moments. NC State. See, there are just so many good Zeke Mayo moments. We don't appreciate him enough, I feel. He's made 6 threes yesterday, James. He was
Yeah, and I was going to
not
say
number.
that's something about Zeke. I think that last year's team lacked is that he's a winner. Obviously, I mean, he won a ton of games at South Dakota State. He was the Summit League Player of the Year. But I think he's one of those kids. I don't not speak for him, but oh, I think I had an audio pro. Oh, there we go. I don't want to speak for him, but it seems like all he cares about is winning. And especially now, it's not only like South Dakota State, he won a ton of games at, but now he's playing for his hometown school in his hometown. And I think, him playing for the Jayhawks is a dream come true. And he's playing, with that wearing the Kansas across his chest with pride. And he's, when no matter how, maybe he has a bad shooting night, he's going to go out there and give you everything he has for the city and for the school. And that's what he's done all season long for the Jayhawks.
It was an extremely impressive game for Zeke Mayo, another one to add to the collection. Zeke Mayo, 9 rebounds. Flory Badunga, 11 rebounds. Had another double-double. I think that's his second career double-double. Flory looks extremely comfortable in the starting lineup.
Yeah, and Florey's gotten better with every game, I think. And it's very, he was one of the best freshmen in the 2024 class coming into the season. He was Mr. Indiana basketball twice, which is no easy feat to get once, let alone twice. But he I think every game he's gotten better, he's gotten more comfortable, and I think it comes with playing with Hunter because now you have two 7-footers, or Flory's what 6'10", but practically a 7-footer. So you have two 7-footers. Both are very skilled on the paint, on the block, and in the paint with the ball in their hands. So having those two have such good chemistry, and I was actually after the UCF game, they were both had availability, and they have seemed to have very good chemistry even off the court, laughing, smiling, hugging, whatever. So it seems like they get along really well off the court, which has made for some great chemistry on the court. And it has also caused some major problems for some defenses because Hunter Dickinson's very hard to guard by himself. Then you have another All American caliber 7-footer on the other block, and it's caused some real problems.
Yeah. Rylan Griffin had a little bit of a quiet game. He didn't shoot the ball terrific, only took 2 3-pointers the entire game, which I thought was a little surprising considering he made 5 of them against Houston in that heartbreaker. But David Coit really provided a secondary spark. Coit and Adams both finished with 12. Can you talk about what you saw from Diggy Coit that you think makes this Kansas team just so much more versatile when he's hitting shots?
Yeah, I feel like Biggie has become kind of an X factor off the bench. I mean, it was not only tonight; he's made some big plays in many different games this year coming off the bench. And I think I said on a pregame show, I think back it was the UNC Wilmington game. He's only 5'11", but he plays like he's 6'4", and he carries himself that way. And he has been maybe the most surprising player for Kansas, I'd say, because I don't think a lot of fans were familiar. He wasn't an AJ Store hype, transfer coming from one Power Five school to another. He came from Northern Illinois, where he was very good, but it's still who knows. And everyone knew Zeke just because he was a Lawrence High kid and he was the Summit League Player of the Year. But Diggy Coit, I think, has been a very good bright spot off the bench, and I think you could say has been their X factor because Flory was the X factor, but I think we've seen from his past performances he's going to be a starter long term. And I think Diggy's been a very nice piece to the squad this year. And I think he transferred in late, but he's been like an X factor off the bench, and he's made some big plays, and that's what he did last night. I think he played like 30 minutes last night too, which is huge coming off the bench in a
Yeah,
night where Rylan
he
really
played
struggled to
30.
score.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I mean Rylan struggled to score. Shaq's not going to score a ton for you because his thing's just he'll be the best on-ball defender on the floor. So, but Diggy will give you that bench scoring you need, and KJ did the same thing. KJ played more than I thought he would last night, but I thought KJ in his first real run since his injury played really well, and I'm sure the KU burners won't like it, but KJ had a very good performance, and without KJ, I don't know if you win last night.
Yeah, we'll talk about that decision because Bill Self's going to have to make a decision here pretty soon, whether KJ Adams comes off the bench or Flory comes off the bench like he was before the injury. What do you think about that situation?
I think obviously the last night's one game, so it's a small sample size. But if KJ keeps playing like that off the bench, and Flory's been very good in the starting lineup for KU, so I mean, if they keep playing thriving in their roles, I don't see why you change it because KJ, he was good on the starting lineup because he's been, KJ's KJ. He's been around the block for KU for a while now, but I think that last night was probably the best we've seen him play this season. And then Flory, like I said, he had double double last night. He's getting better each and every game. So if they keep thriving in their bench roles and in their starting roles, I don't see why you change it. And because Flory has really played himself into, it's not even like a shot at KJ. Flory has really played himself into a starting role. Not only, I mean, I think we were all assuming he comes back next season, he'll be the starting center. But I think he's played him so well that you can't take him out of the starting lineup. And KJ coming off the bench last night playing well, I don't see why you change anything. Obviously, it's a small sample size with one game, but I really like where this lineup's at with Flory in the starting lineup.
Yeah, I think it provides something that we were just missing. Two big 7 footers is a little different than KJ, who is 6'6", 6'7".
Yeah, he's smaller. And the fun thing about having Flory is that Hunter Dickinson can actually stretch the floor a little bit and shoot from the outside.
Mhm.
That way you don't have to go all five out. So it just gives you more looks as an offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the decision that everybody is hoping Bill Self makes. But KJ Adams' importance to Kansas basketball always, I think, goes under the radar just because he doesn't light the box score up. And it's upsetting. But what's important is people around the program, and I mean, we give them a lot of credit. But there are people who do see that, but a lot of people when they just take a look at the box score, his stats just aren't lining up to everyone else's, and that's kind of what happens when you're in a position like KJ.
Yeah, and I mean, it's another thing. It's just that comes with playing for such a passionate fan base, right? I mean, I'm from Boston, so we know all about getting on the players, and it just you play KU fans really care. It's like religion. It's basketball's like religion here, and they're gonna call you out for not playing well. Zeke heard it after the Houston game, and then what did he do? He showed up and maybe had his best game of the season against UCF. So. That comes with being a Jayhawk, and some people do take it with pride. I think KJ's taken it really well, taking all the criticism because I just think that's the type of kid he is. He's a hardworking guy and he's bleeds Jayhawk crimson and blue, and that's and Bill Self obviously will defend KJ no matter what because KJ has been here now 4 years and is a national champion. You don't win a
Yeah.
national championship by accident. So KJ
Nope.
is, I think, taking all of this with pride and with class because, I will say, everything, you know, play aside, he's a very easy kid to root for, and I really hope he keeps playing like he did last night and comes off of injury very well.
Yeah. Real quick, James, what is the worst college and then what is the worst professional sports fan bases? But you can't say Philly.
That's actually what I was gonna say because I was gonna say that.
We've had this
Um,
conversation
the
before.
worst,
Those Philly fans
the
are
worst professional
insane.
the worst college fan base. Shout out the Yukon Huskies, because I was actually talking. I think I might have talked about with you about this, but it's like you combine New York fans and Boston fans into one fan base, and that's the Yukon Huskies. So that's by far, without a doubt, the worst college fan base,
Can't
and then
stand UConn.
bat the worst professional sports fan base. I don't want to say New York because I actually like the city of New York, and I think without New York, Boston's not like I don't know. The rivalries with Boston and New York are too thick. It's probably Boston, unbiased, but I want to say LA because this is my reasoning. LA fans, they don't care, like Dodgers, for example. No one was at the games till like the middle of September. And then all of a sudden, they were diehard fans once they're like, oh, the Dodgers are going to win the World Series inevitably. So it's just like a plastic fan base. And same thing, I don't want to say it about the Lakers because the Lakers are an anomaly. But like same thing with like I don't I don't know a Los Angeles Rams fan like or a Los
You
Angeles
won't see
Chargers fan.
one. Actually,
Yeah, so like
I saw a Matt Stafford Rams jersey when I was, where was I? Well, maybe this was at the Creighton, Kansas game in the middle of
that's a
Nebraska.
crazy pull.
In the middle of Nebraska, Rams Matt Stafford jersey. But I don't know.
Also,
I've never met an actual
if I
Rams
can't
fan.
if I can't say Philly would be my number one choice. But if I can't say Philly, I would then say Miami because Miami Heat fans are obsessed with the Boston Celtics and their burners give us hell. I'm on Celtics Twitter. Like I'm like a diehard Celtics fans for anyone that doesn't know. You probably would consider me a toxic fan, I'm sure, but that's fine. But
Sorely.
Miami Heat fans, shout out Fede Moreno, but Miami Heat fans drive me crazy.
That is an insane dig. A dig at Fed right?
Yeah.
But
No,
I
not dig at
agree.
Fede, just dig at everyone else.
I agree. Well, let's take a look forward because this Kansas Jayhawks team has a game at Baylor on Saturday. Baylor is had an up and down season. They really have. Their big star recruit, VJ Edgecombe, had a rough start to his college basketball career, and now he's kind of picking it up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think his first game of the season, we saw him do that crazy dunk over Mark Few's kid. But he had a good night last night at BYU, but they ended up losing in overtime. BYU is a tough team, though. I think BYU could be a tournament team if they figure everything out.
Mm.
But Baylor should be. I will say Baylor should be a lot better than they are. They've had some injuries. Jeremy Roach has been banged up. Langston Love hasn't played in a while, so like they've had injuries. And Scott Drew, I mean, I find it I have to actually do something for the Kansas for this game, do the staff pick. So I'm trying to find a reason to pick Kansas because I think the weird thing about this game for me is I don't think Kansas is going to win, but I also don't want to pick Baylor because Baylor's just had such a weird season.
They're a weird
Because
team.
yeah, it's Scott. It's really hard to pick against Scott Drew, especially at home, because he's turned one of the worst Power Five, probably the worst Power Five program into a national powerhouse the past 5 years. So
Yeah.
it's really hard to pick against one of the best coaches in America. But I'm gonna pick Kansas just because Baylor's been so banged up. And actually, it's funny about this. I was looking at the numbers the other day. I just figured Dickinson led the Big 12 rebounding, but Norchad Omier Baylor leads it. So I'm very interested to see how they handle Omier down low. He only led up by point 0.1, but still, I was surprised to see Dickinson wasn't the Big 12 leader in rebounds. So
Mhm.
I'm interested to see. And Omier is a guy who's been to the Final Four at Miami, so to see how Kansas handles Omier down low and how they because Baylor is a tough place to play. They have a nice culture now, so I'm gonna go Kansas, but I think it's gonna be very close, like a 5-6 point game. I'm curious what the spread will be, but I think Kansas wins a close one.
Yeah, I agree. They have a few good wins. I mean, they beat a good St. John's team. They fought back and beat them in double overtime. And other than that, they played UConn close. But it's been a really up and down year for them, and they're looking for a big win, a season defining win. And so the atmosphere is going to be crazy on Saturday. But I like Kansas's chances. I like the way that they've been playing, and I really feel like it was just two great offenses going at it yesterday. And I feel like the identity that we know of Kansas Jayhawks defense is going to be back on Saturday. And fingers crossed, defense travels. I like the Jayhawks by probably 6 or 7. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be close, but I think Kansas should be able to take care of Baylor because Baylor has just had so many injuries this season.
Yeah, their season's just really weird.
Yeah,
Other than that, who are some of your I want to just talk about some normal, I guess not normal, but just some other college basketball topics real quick. Who are your favorite freshmen to watch in college basketball?
I could be boring and say Cooper Flag, I guess, because actually I was on the Dylan Harper hype train for a while, but then he got sick, and then he got injured. But Ace Bailey's really started to play well, and Rutgers has really been bad though. So that's the
Rutgers
only
has
downside.
really been
Those
bad. They beat
they should have
Nebraska
been
at
much better.
Nebraska.
Yeah,
Tough place to
Nebraska hadn't
play.
lost a home game in like 700 days and lost back-to-back ones.
Yeah. They
But
that Rutgers team, those dudes are talented. I pretty
they are
confident those
good.
guys are going to go number 2 and number 3 in the draft.
I just wish their team was better. That way, I want to see them in March, but the way it looks now, it's probably not going to happen. But then all
Bro.
the two Europeans at Illinois have been fun, but Kasparas Yakonius, I don't know, probably butchered his name.
Yakashonis, Kasparis
Yeah,
Yakashonis.
yeah, from Lithuania. He's been fun, but he's been hurt. And then Ivicic, Tomislav Ivicic, whose brother is Big Z at Arkansas, and Arkansas has been a disaster this season. But
Yeah, they have.
those guys of Illinois have been fun. The Big Ten's like wide open. Michigan State, I think, is in first, but I still think they're very beatable. I mean,
Yeah,
K State kind of beat them pretty well, but
they're up 2 games in the Big Ten. I listen to a Big Ten basketball oriented podcast every single morning. And so sadly I'm pretty well adapted, well well versed in the world of Big Ten basketball. But I think the best way to describe the Big Ten is it's a mid off.
yeah,
It's a bunch of above average teams playing each other. Because I think that Michigan team's really good. I think Purdue's pretty good. I think Michigan State's all right. I think Purdue, Michigan, Illinois are like the 3 best teams, and none of them are leading the conference right now. So I think it's like a bunch of above a bunch of good average teams playing each other, and that's it just creates so much. What's the word? It's you're gonna have to help me find a word.
Parity?
It's so much parity. There it is.
Yeah, and I really like I never have been a Michigan guy. Sorry, there's now a bus next to me. I don't know if you can hear it.
I
But
can barely hear it. You're okay.
all right. Yeah, but there's I've never been a Michigan guy, but I love Dusty May. I like what he did at FAU because I'm a
Mhm.
Florida guy too. Like I used to live down there. So what he did at FAU was really cool. And so I find it easy to root for Michigan because like no shade, but I was never a Jawan Howard guy. But Dusty May now he's doing good things year one at Michigan after what was a disaster of a program last year. I find it very easy to root for Dusty. I hope he doesn't leave because there's rumors he might be headed to Indiana because he coached
Indiana.
there under Bobby Knight. So I don't know. We'll have to see. But I think his buyout's crazy at Michigan, and they're going to give him like $8 million to stay. So I don't know. I'm big into. You'll see in March, like once all the coaches get fired. I'm like a sicko about like coach searches. I was on Curry Hicks Sage's Spaces last night talking about the potential of the Utah job opening up with him. So
Okay.
I just love the coaching searches, but I hope Dusty can make a. I heard if he makes a Final Four, the number that someone will give him there is crazy. So I find Michigan easy to root for just because I'm a Dusty guy. So
I just like the way that they utilize two bigs. I think Danny Wolf is an incredible point forward, and Vlad Golden, I mean, we all saw what he did at FAU. It's just, I love how much confidence he has in those guys, especially Danny Wolf, because that's not what he did at FAU. It's not. He had four guards and he had Vlad Golden. And I
yeah,
think what's really fun is he takes this new job, he goes and gets a guy he really, really likes. And then he just goes and says, "Okay, let's go play some basketball now." Like we got a whole new crew, and we're just gonna keep doing what we were doing. I'm not a huge fan of Roddy Gale, the transfer from Ohio
Nebraska kid.
State. Yeah, but I mean, like you know what you're getting from him. You know,
Yeah,
it's like you can't really be too upset with what you've gotten because you know him. Played at
yeah.
literally your rival. You knew what you were.
He was a Sierra Canyon kid with Bronny too.
That's
That
crazy.
team he was part of that stacked team over there.
That's crazy. But you knew what you were getting from Roddy Gale, so. I do like them. My favorite team in the Big Ten is Illinois. And we'll see what they're made of because they go to Nebraska to play at Nebraska tomorrow. And I love hate watching the Huskers. No, I'm just kidding. I just like basketball. The Skurs are
He's
on
not
all.
kidding.
Uh, I mean, they gave us a lot of crap earlier in the year and they had a better record than us. And now who's
and
left?
they beat Creighton.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, maybe they did. That's AI. That was AI. That never happened. All right, I want to play a game with you real quick. I think it's pretty fun.
All right.
It's a buy, sell, hold game, and I'm gonna go over some of the contenders for March Madness, and you're pretty much really quick, and then just tell me, would you buy them to win the national championship, hold on to them, or sell them?
All right. Perfect.
Pretty self-explanatory. We'll go over a few teams here. I'm using Ken Palm for a little bit of a reference. How about Auburn, the Auburn Tigers? I know Janiah Broome still dealing with a little bit of an injury, but they got a huge win at home against Tennessee this weekend.
That's a buy for me. I mean, I think Auburn's my number one team in the country. I think they should
Yeah.
be 19-0. I think they very well could have won that game at Cameron Indoor.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think they play with Broome healthy. They play Duke on a neutral floor. I think they win like 9 times out of 10. I think that Auburn team's legit. And I hope Bruce Pearl's a Massachusetts guy. So I root for Bruce Pearl. He's a BC guy. And I hope they can get over that hump and make even a national title game this year. But yeah, it's a easy buy for me.
Yeah. One of my favorite players in college basketball is Chad Baker Mazara.
He's and with Broome out,
He's a
he's been
dog.
even more of a dog too. He's been
He's a
their guy.
dog. He's fun. He's hard
Yeah.
nosed. It's like he's
Oh,
a guy I'd want.
he'll lay his body on you.
It's a guy I'd want on my team, and I'd hate to play against him. All
That's the
righty.
San Diego State in him.
Yep. Yes, it is. Here you go. Houston Cougars. Allen
Oh,
Fieldhouse
bye.
this weekend. Get a win.
Bye. I don't know if I love him, but I really like Kelvin Sampson as a coach. And one of these years, it's now been like a 5-year cycle where you feel like Houston should make like even a title game or win a title.
Yeah.
And Houston's had better teams, but this team's really gelling well, and they're 8-0 to start Big 12 play. They have a tough one on the road tonight at West Virginia, but
Mhm.
I think they're a legitimate title contender, and they're a buy for me.
All righty. We'll go four more teams here. How about the Florida Gators, James?
Oh man, I want to say buy. Like,
These are
I
your
don't know if this.
Gators.
I'm a Gator guy. For those of you guys who don't know, but Todd Golden has built a nice, fun culture there, and they have Elijah Martin, who's been maybe the best transfer in the SEC. Maybe I don't know. Miles Kelly at Auburn's been pretty good, but I'm gonna say bye just because I think their offense is one of the hardest to guard in America because Walter Clayton can do it all. Elijah Martin's a dude. Will Richard's been playing the best basketball of his career the past few weeks. So and they have a very good young coach in Todd Golden who made some tournaments at San Francisco, which was a very hard job. So I'm gonna go by. Maybe that's the bias kicking in. Everyone's a little biased one way or the other. So I'm gonna go by.
All righty. The Duke Blue Devils. What do you think, James?
Oh, I see. I would
It's a
say bye
young
because I
team.
think
It's a young team.
I would say bye because I think they can win, but I don't think they're gonna. I just think they have a ton of flaws. Like we saw it the other night against NC State.
Mhm.
NC State was in that game until about 4 minutes were left, and they only have two losses. They're what 18-2, both to Kansas and Kentucky, which by any means aren't bad losses, both on neutral floor. So they haven't lost a road game, they haven't lost a home game, but Auburn, I still think should have beat them at Cameron Indoor, but I'll say bye. But I don't think they're the number two team in the country. But they're in the. This is probably the worst ACC I've seen of my lifetime.
Yeah, the safety's
So
not very good.
they're taking advantage of a very winnable schedule, and they're going to keep winning because outside of Louisville, who's been a fun team this year, there's no real competition in the ACC. So I'll say bye, but I do think I don't know if the two seed's the right, and everyone's been losing really because Iowa State just lost too. But I'm going to say bye, but I think there's more than just one team better than them, but
Yeah.
without a doubt, they are a real national title contender.
They play North Carolina this weekend, so that's one of my or favorite rivalries in college basketball for sure.
Maybe a game that could save Hubert Davis's job. Who knows?
Yeah,
I
maybe.
heard. I heard.
I
I
don't
heard
know.
through.
He's bringing in a 5 star, so maybe you give him one more year.
I've heard through the grapevine that they're not going to fire him after because they had a good year last year. They're not going to fire him after one bad season. They're going to give him at least one more year. Two bad seasons in a row at a school like Carolina, you're probably gone. But I have heard from people that he is going to get one more year.
Oh yeah,
Whether he should or
you have
not
crazy
is not.
sources. Sort name
Whether he
drop
should or
your
not is
sources.
not my concern. But
Name drop your sources right now. Um, okay, we'll go two more teams here. I'll just lump them in together. Iowa State and then the Kansas Jayhawks.
I don't want to get hate here. I was actually on the show when I said Iowa State was my preseason
Yeah,
national
you
title
were.
pick, and
Because
I'm
I
going to
said
stand
Duke.
by
I
it.
said Duke, so
I'm going to stand by it. That's a buy. Shout out TJ. He's a Creighton guy. Shout out the Cyclones, and they're still my. I still think they're the number two team in the country, but they lost a tough game at Arizona that they probably shouldn't have lost. But whatever. That half court shot was stupid. But and then Kansas.
it was insane.
I'm not going to put my bias in. I think I don't want to say I'm going to say hold for Kansas. I don't think I think they could make a run, but but I just think defensively they're really good. But I just think offensively they've been kind of too iffy for me. Like I wouldn't feel confident having them go deep. And I actually saw something. They have like 14 over 3, 13 over 4 written all over them if they run into like a buckyball style team again. So because like we all know they were up big on Sanford, and then Sanford should have maybe won that game last year.
That was an insane game.
Yeah, it was a fun
Timberlake
game.
did not get fouled.
Oh my god! But and now he's actually at one of those guys is at K State now, so that's like a fun little jump. But no, I'm gonna say hold on them. I don't think they're a real contender, but I think they have the potential to make a little bit of a run.
There you go. That's all I got for you, James. You have any final thoughts?
Um, Kansas, fun game this weekend. Tune in. Baylor is a small arena, so it gets loud there. So it'll be tough. I mean, Baylor's Baylor. They won a national title 3 years ago. So I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully KU keeps winning. Then my Iowa State coming to Lawrence on Monday. That's a tough schedule that they built in Kansas for Kansas, but Bill Self and his guys don't care. They'll just go out and they'll win the game. So that's fun. It's very tough 2 games coming up, but very fun for Jayhawk Nation.
Yeah. No rest for the wicked in the Big 12. There you go. I appreciate you taking the time to come talk to me today, James.
Yes, sir, Jack.
All righty. There you go,
All right.
guys. The Kansas Jayhawks were able to get a 91-87 victory over the UFC Knights. That is Jack Kenna and James Madden. Appreciate you guys taking the time to listen with us, and we'll see you later.